one of the OG callers into Vikings Vet Line. And now, he's one of the biggest Vikings YouTube superstars on Earth. His Vikings pain is now your game. This is Realistic Randy Rants with Randy and Declan on Purple Daily and Score North.
How about that for an intro, Randy? That was a Phil Mackey creation, by the way. I don't have the capabilities to throw. Actually, I do have the capabilities. I shouldn't sell myself short. But that was a Phil Mackey creation there with the little Realistic Randy intro there for Purple Daily.
That is way too much pressure. My God. But thank you, Phil, for putting that together.
Well, welcome in, man. This is the debut episode. This is Realistic Randy Rants. That's my guy, Randy. I'm Declan. This is part of the new Purple Daily and Score North network of Viking shows. So we've expanded from Mackey and Judd and Purple Daily, of course. We now have Realistic Randy Rants dropping every Monday right here on this YouTube channel. And, of course, on Purple Daily's podcast feed, Apple, Spotify, the Score North app, a central hub for everything you do. Randy, you were with us last year kind of for some after dark episodes on Tuesday nights. But now this is now shifting to a Monday afternoon show. We'll be doing the show, obviously, for the next 5 weeks before the season starts. But then this will then be the same thing the Monday after the game. Plenty of takes, plenty of reaction to get to. Randy, before we get into our top topic here, just give the audience a little background of who you are and how long you have been a miserable Vikings fan like the rest of us. Give us a little backstory on who you are for people who haven't discovered you before.
So I've been talking Vikings since, I think, 2016 on the YouTube channel. I called into Vikings Vent Line during the old 1500 days. 1500 ESPN, and honestly, I'm no longer miserable, Declan. Those days are behind me now. I have seen the light. I am super positive, super optimistic. I don't know who it is that you're talking about as far as miserable Vikings fan, because that guy is no longer here. I am pumped up. I am jacked up. And let me tell you something right now. We as Vikings content creators and Vikings fans especially, we're guilty of this every offseason. And not just Vikings fans, but fans across the league. We're all guilty of this every offseason to say, okay, this year, oh my God, we can finally get over the hump. This is finally going to be our year. I'm not going to say that. But what I will say is that I am absolutely fired up for this season. And the reason why is because this roster is so talented. The talent on this roster is here. It has been here for years. But the key here, the difference here is coaching. Kevin O'Connell, to me, seems to be a guy who gets it. And when I say gets it, I don't mean that this is rocket science. I mean, you have a superstar wide receiver. Your wide receiver, too. If health isn't an issue, you have one of the best tandems in the league. Your wide receiver 3 last year had a sensational season. He's only going to get better. You have a tight end that we're all banking on having his breakout year. And you have one of the best running backs in football. Kevin O'Connell, I think he embraces not trying to have this mold to fit all these players in, but say, I'm going to look at each individual player and how can I put them in a position to succeed and for us together to win games. Maximize the offense. The defense with this pass rush of Zadarius Smith and Danielle Hunter is going to be anything other than a disaster. So maximize offense. Defense, even if average, is going to be better than it was last year and the year before that. The 2021 Vikings, Declan, 8 of their 9 losses were within 1 score. That's coaching. Because of that, maximize defense, better maximize offense, better defense. I see the Vikings going 11-6. Your thought?
I love it. Wow. There's the opening rant right there. 11-6 expectations. Randy, before I give you my expectation, just a quick question for you. Were you this excited though? 7-8 years back when Zim, were you this enthused? Do you remember you were younger, obviously too, but were you this enthused when Mike Zimmer was hired and going into 2014?
I was, because we needed that change. Les Frazier clearly wasn't the head coach. And I was just saying to myself, we need a quarterback. We got Teddy Bridgewater, the whole Christian Ponder days and the Matt Castle and the Josh Freeman carousel. Luckily, that was over with. But I said, we just need some fresh blood with this coaching staff. And I thought Mike Zimmer coming in, and Bengals fans, defensive coordinator coming from Cincinnati, Bengals fans, they loved Mike Zimmer. I said, okay, you can really tell as far as how good a player or a coach is based on how the fans react once that player or coach leaves. And they say, oh my God, we're going to miss him. We wish he were still here. So I was super excited. And after that first year, you saw the difference. The Vikings, they went 7-9, if I'm not mistaken, in 2014. But you saw the difference. And if nothing else, the defense. And then I said, okay, we got something going here. 2015, you make it to the playoffs. And if not for Blair Walsh, who I was screaming long before Wyatt left, I was like, we need to get rid of this guy. 2015, you made the playoffs. All right, Wyatt left happened. We're going to bounce back. Then 2016 happened. I don't want to go down this carousel. But each year after 2015, I just got in the spirit, beat the hell out of me. So, yes, I am guilty of being excited in 2014, the Mike Zimmer arrival. But this just feels different to me.
It does feel different. And I think that's what's more exciting. I'm with you that when Mike Zimmer was hired, I was like, it just needed, right? Like it's overdue. The Vikings defense wasn't good anymore. He has a defensive background. I'm excited for this. And let's see where it takes us, I guess. With Kevin O'Connell, yeah, there's definitely, and personalities help drive this a little bit too, but he's just more outgoing. He's just more straightforward. He's not your grizzled football vet who has been spit up and shoot out like Mike Zimmer was up until that point. I mean, the guy had bounced around, felt like he had deserved head coaching opportunities years prior, and finally gets it into his late 50s. Good for him, has a great 8-year run. But with the Vikings now, to your point, they're running it back. Whether for better or worse, they will run this back. And if all things go according to plan, I think your 11-6 kind of record is probably their ceiling, or that's a realistic expectation. Their ceiling could be whatever it is, but the expectation is if he maximizes the offense, the defense has a healthy Danielle Hunter and turns things around, they should be hopefully league average. And then the Vikings take a step forward after being unlucky last year, and they become, a double-digit win team that potentially wins the North and obviously is in the playoff fold. I think those are the expectations. Mine for this season, and I have voiced this with some Ventline fans during our offseason episodes, my just borderline expectation, and however the record falls, I won't say is irrelevant, but this is just my number one expectation for me, is the Vikings finally have a top 5 offense. Finally have a top 5 offense. It's been too damn, just unfortunately disappointing that the last 2 seasons they've had so many good players in their offense, and they've been 14th and 11th in points scored. And yards gained, I don't care about yards gained. The yards are kind of not irrelevant, but how many points are you scoring, dudes? Here, what are you actually putting up the numbers you should be when you're in the red zone and all that stuff? Are you being efficient? Can he finally get them to be a top 5 offense? And to be honest, again, to go back to the wins and loss thing being irrelevant, if you're a track meet offense and you're putting up a lot of points, I'm okay with that on Sunday. I'm not going to say the outcome doesn't matter, and I hope that they put up more W's than they put up losses. But I want to watch an offense that can just fly. And the way that offense have evolved with the Chiefs and the Bills and how other teams have gotten creative, Lamar Jackson with the Ravens. I mean, hell, Jalen Hurts with the Eagles, they've threw out their entire playbook and said, you're our offense now. For the lack of better words, go figure it out on your own. Just the way the offenses have trended in general, I want to see the Vikings have a top 5 offense. That is my minimal expectation. Then after everything after that, the linear plan, after that, we'll figure that out. But my expectation is a top 5 offense for the Vikings in 2022.
And wherever the chips fall, so be it. Whether they make a deep run in the playoffs or not, that's whatever. But to your point, if this is going to be a track meet offense, whatever you get from the defense is going to be a bonus, because on ESPN, I think they had the Vikings as the 4th best collection of playmakers. They're one of the top playmakers in the league. Who else would you take ahead of the Vikings? Not many. So with that said, if you have a coach that can exploit weaknesses, and going back to the wins and losses point, 8 of your 9 losses were within 1 score. The only game that you got beat the hell up was against the Packers at Lambeau Field, where Kirk Cousins wasn't even playing. But in those tight-knit games, coaching is key. It's a chess match from that point on. And I think Kevin O'Connell, he's going to at least make it to where in those 8 losses, we can at least win 40%, maybe even 50% of those games instead. So I think this is going to be a fun year. Wherever the chips may fall, so be it. But as long as we see this team maximizing its potential to where, my God, dude, going back to the 2017 NFC Championship game and beyond, up through last year, Every single time I watched this team, I said, how are they going to screw up? What are they going to do that's going to be so stupid to where we get our bloods boiling and just blood pressure going through the roof? What are they going to do that's so stupid? Wins or losses, whatever happens, I think this team is in good hands with this head coach.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. And it's needed, and I'm excited to see what he gets out of the offense, what he takes from Sean McVay and brings over to the Vikings. Quickly here, let me ask you this. Is there the next gear to Kirk, right? Because I think that's the talker here. Like, is Kirk Cousins indeed going to rise up? Or is he 34 years old and in that, tier 3, maybe tier 2 quarterback range? All these quarterback rankings that are coming out kind of have him between that 15th and 13th range. No one has him as really a top 10 guy to a degree in terms of visual rankings. There's statistics and perception that say, no, he is a top 10 guy in these categories. But in general, overall perception is he's not a top 10 quarterback. He's a fine quarterback. You can get by with him. You need things around him to be the best. But do you think that Kevin O'Connell actually gets something out of him that maybe Mike Zimmer hasn't been able to get out of him in his previous tenure as the Vikings quarterback?
Absolutely, because it's a system league. We have those handful of quarterbacks, Mahomes, Rodgers, Brady, that can really put the team on their back and carry the team, will their team to victory when asked to do so. But that's the luxury. That's not the norm. The norm is, listen, you have a quarterback. If he's top 10 to top 15, so be it. How can you make a system work around him? And I think I saw this stat for the 2021 Vikings. Correct me if I'm wrong. The Vikings, they were top 3, maybe number 1 in 3 and outs last year.
Yeah, they were.
Something along those lines. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I did a personal count on that, Declan. As far as the 3 and outs where they ran the ball on 2nd and long, 22 times. 22 times. And so a coach that knows what the hell he's doing with the players that he has on his roster. And make no mistake about it. If you're running the ball on 2nd and long consistently, that means on 1st down, you're just trying to chip away. Yep. 2nd down, you're trying to chip away again to set yourself up more often than not in 3rd and long situations. So that pass that you're going for on 3rd and long becomes this monumental pressure. Just, oh my God, let's just hopefully not screw up to where 2nd and long, go throw the damn ball. Try to get closer to where you can get a 3rd and short situation. So little things like that, putting Kirk in situations to where he can succeed. And if we look at, quarterbacks that overachieved, Jimmy Garoppolo, God, this dude has a career record of 33-14. He's nowhere near better than Kirk Cousins. He's not on Kirk Cousins level. Matthew Stafford, before he got to LA, never won a playoff game in Detroit. Couldn't do anything worth a damn. Jared Goff in LA with Sean McVay, got to the Super Bowl, great record, and he's in Detroit now, and all of a sudden we're looking at him as, well, you know what, maybe he was a bust all along. I think this guy, we just needed a head coach who understands offense, because I think going back to 2018, when we saw the Rams, Jared Goff Rams, I was saying, man, we could be that team. That high-octane offense, just put the pedal to the metal, don't stop. That type of offense, that could be us, and that could have been us for years. And I think that can be us right now. With Kirk Cousins, the dude, even with shoddy coaching, he always throws for 4,000 yards, 30 touchdowns. Now you have a coach that knows what he's doing on offense. Man, please, I think this is the system that we finally need, where Kirk, I think there's another level to Kirk Cousins. I know necessarily you don't think that way. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think he is who he is. And that's a guy who can make all the throws and has a durability factor that is worth celebrating. But I think the area that he can be unlocked is his mental state. And this is hard though, it's one thing when you're 34 years old and just in general, unless you're Tom Brady, you're eating kale and sleeping in a cyborg machine every night, your body just breaks down and you're not as good as you were when you're 24 compared to when you're 34. But can you change someone else's thinking? Can you change the mindset from Kirk of being hey, don't take the check down here. We have to go for a kill shot. We have to go for a big play. we can get points right here. We can get a big play right here. You have to be able to have the mindset to do it. And to Kirk, that's a little risky to him, right? Like he doesn't want to necessarily make a risky play that could change the outcome, or it could maybe be a Matthew Stafford where it throws a pick, could shipwreck the game. But also, like if you get it in there right, we're marching right back down the field and we're going to be taking control of this game. I think that's where I have questions if Kevin O'Connell can indeed do it. If he can do it, if he can unlock the mental part of Kirk's game, then all right, all bets are off. This dude's going to take a step forward. I think physically I know who he is. He's not going to change who he is physically. But mentally, can he take the next step that he hasn't been able to do before, and he kind of sometimes has a lot of these excuses built into his brain. So can Kevin O'Connell get rid of those excuses, maximize those? And if that is the case, then yes, I think we're talking about a top 10 guy and a guy who lives up to the contract. And we have a lot less negative things to say if Kevin O'Connell is able to do it and get that kind of quarterback out of him. That's my expectations for him.
I think your biology is who you are. He's not going to change. What you can do as a head coach is better support your player. So if there's any better example as far as the restriction that Kirk Cousins was under, Week 18 last year against the Bears, Justin Jefferson, the final possession, he has a chance to break Randy Moss's record. And if your quarterback is allowed to say, screw it, I'm going to take over this team, I'm the leader here, he's going to give his wide receiver a chance to break that record. And what did they do? They took a knee. If that doesn't tell you the restrictions that he was under, I don't know what else to say, because to me, Kevin O'Connell, I feel like he's going to, and some people are like this way. You can't say, you know what, just be that alpha dog. Have that dog in him. Just take over the team and just really just shout out to the rooftops everything that's going to happen. Some players aren't built like that. That's just not in their biology. What you can do is say, I believe in you, Kirk. Whatever you see here, maybe we'll let you audible out of plays, the original plays that we're giving you to call. We'll give you the free. Has he ever audibled with the Vikings? I don't think he ever has. But stuff like that, to where you could say, you know what? Whatever you feel in your gut, go for it. Because what I will say in Kirk's defense is, whenever he gets shots taken at him, whether it's Zach Brown from the Philadelphia Eagles in 2019, who was talking a bunch of junk, saying it's Kirk Cousins, we're not afraid of him. And I was there at US Bank Stadium, and Kirk and Stephon Diggs, they went all the way off. Or whether it's Cam Jordan, those playoffs, he goes on, oh my gosh, what's his, Rich Eisen? Is it Rich Eisen's show?
Yeah.
He got on there and said, oh, we Kirk Cousins. He started laughing and doing all this stuff, and he went in the Superdome and won that game. Kirk Cousins, to me, seems to be a guy that's just, all shucks, I don't want to cause any issues. But you know what? Everyone has that line in the sand to where if you cross it, they show up. I think Kevin O'Connell understands the player that Kirk Cousins is mentally and physically to say, listen, we got your back. Do what you see fit.
Absolutely. Hey, before we get into some other individual expectations for some players, a shout out to our friends at Brainerd International Raceway, which is hosting the Lucas Oil Nationals a couple weeks from now, August 18th to the 21st. You can get your tickets for this event at BIRMN.com. Kids come with a pit pass. You can be on the track with them. It's going to be an awesome time at Brainerd International Raceway. Again, the Lucas Oil Nationals, August 18th through the 21st at Brainerd International Raceway, BIRMN.com to learn more there. Also, I have friends at Underdog Fantasy. Randy, are you a fantasy football guy?
Oh, yeah.
Just curious. Yeah? Okay. So I was not a fantasy football dude for a long time. Like I was for a long time, and then I got out of it. Like I did it for like 7-8 years, high school dynasty league with all my boys, and then eventually I won the league in like 2015, and I was like, all right, I'm done with this. Like I won the league, long way to get there, but I'm out. I want to go what is it like without having to play fantasy football? And to be honest, I kind of was content. I even used to say one of the best decisions I ever made in life was quitting fantasy football. I used to honestly say that because I didn't have to be paralyzed by lineup settings, by the draft, by waiver orders, by bye weeks. Like it gets annoying, right? Well, what I love about Underdog is you draft the players. You do the normal round, which is the most fun. Everyone knows the best part about fantasy football season is the draft time. And then they will set the best possible lineup for you. So you want to take 2 quarterbacks, they will just automatically play the best quarterback. You want to draft 5 wide receivers, they will play the best 2 wide receivers in your lineup. It's no management. They manage it for you, which is what I love. And you can do daily, you can do season-long stuff. If you're interested at Underdog Fantasy, you can join with promo code SCORE, SKOR. It's in the link of our YouTube bio right now, SKOR, and they will match your first deposit up to $100. Also, some great pick-em options and other things that they offer too. So Underdog Fantasy, shout out to them. You sent me over a note that could Justin Jefferson be a guy who finally kind of eclipse not just the Viking season record of wide receiving, but be a 2,000-yard wide receiver? Do you legitimately think Justin Jefferson has it in him to go for 2,000 yards and be honestly one of the best wide receiver single seasons we've ever seen?
Well, it is a note that I sent over, and let's be clear about something. This isn't my idea. This is his goal that he has. I want to eclipse 2K. And I got to be honest. Before this morning when I was getting prepped for today's show, I had a take to where I said, I don't know, man. I am very optimistic about this season. I think he will lead the league in receiving yards, Justin Jefferson. But 2K, I don't know if he's going to be able to do that. Because Kirk Cousins, he's going to throw for 4K automatically every single year. Can you expect Jefferson to account for half, 50% of that production? That's a lot to ask for. But then I did a little bit more digging. Who has Jefferson been compared to this entire offseason ever since Kevin O'Connell came to town?
Cooper Kupp.
Cooper Kupp, exactly. Cooper Kupp, I looked at his stats. Last year, 2021, 1,947 yards, 53 away from 2K. I said, okay, I think Jefferson's the best receiver in the league. Amplified offense, maybe it's possible. Let me look at Stafford's numbers. Stafford last year, almost 4,900 yards throwing. So it makes sense. With that said, if Jefferson is going to hit 2K, I think it's possible. I don't know if I have it in me to say yay or nay. I guess if I have to lean one way, I will say yes. But if Jefferson is going to hit 2K, that means Cousins, he's going to have to go beyond 4K passing. He's going to have to hit anywhere between 47 and 4,800 yards. I think it's very possible that Jefferson gets 2,000 yards receiving.
I mean, it's unheard of in today's or in the past, in the previous incarnation of the NFL, but with the way it's trending now, like guys like Cooper Kupp, like look, Cooper Kupp is a good wide receiver. I think even going into last year, like, yeah, he's probably a top 10 guy, pretty good. No one saw him having the season he did last year though, right? Like no one saw him being the Triple Crown wide receiving leader with receptions, receiving yards, touchdowns. And let's be honest too, this is where again, credit Cooper Kupp, he's good. But Justin Jefferson has proved in the first 2 years like he is legitimately one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. And he already is on a fast track than that Cooper Kupp ever was before him. So do I think he can get to 2,000 yards? Is it in him? Yes. Do I think realistically it's probably going to shake out that way? Probably not. But man, I mean, I think I do believe him when he says, I'm going to be the best wide receiver in the NFL by the end of this season. I do believe him there. You know, he says he gives credit to Devontae Adams. Hey, I guess if we're going longevity and what he's been able to do with Rodgers, and I know he's with Derek Carr now, yeah, Devontae Adams probably going into this season is the best wide receiver. He has the numbers and the respect to back it up. But I think when it's all said and done after this season, I don't think there won't be up for much of a debate anymore. I think Justin Jefferson is indeed your best wide receiver in the NFL and has another monster season. I mean, he is just a game-changing player that fell to the Vikings' lap, essentially. Honestly, kind of similar to Randy Moss. Different situations why they fell in the draft for sure. But he is a game-changing player and a player, too, that has morphed into a leader now. I mean, he's in year 3, and he just the way he talks about things and his expectations and whatnot, I think it's pretty impressive. Randy, what were your thoughts on the whole, Judd made a big deal out of it. Some people said it wasn't a big deal. Curious your thoughts on Kirk Cousins opting to not necessarily work out with his wide receivers like JJ was talking about when he was off the field the other day. I don't know if you saw that story that he was asked if, hey, did Kirk work out with you guys in the offseason? I think JJ and Osborne, a few of them, were working out and stuff. What were your thoughts on Kirk not being a part of that? Was that a big deal or no big deal to you?
I think this is a nothing burger. It's the offseason. And by the way, Cousins, there was a photo of him working out in the offseason with KJ Osborne, and I can't remember who else. It's not like he doesn't want to work out with his receivers in the offseason. He has shown that he will do it, but once in a while, hey, I want to spend time with my family. It's the offseason. I don't think this is anything to raise hell about. The fact that this was news was shocking to me. I think this is an absolute nothing burger. Let him spend time with his family. Who cares?
Yeah. I mean, part of me, I get where people are coming from to a degree, because like he's the year 5 of the quarterback, his 5th year as a quarterback of the Vikings. He's been around for 10 years, and he's got a stigma of kind of a me first kind of dude. So I do feel like if he was able to get out of that trend to a degree, like it might change a little bit perception of him. But at the end of the day, like, does it really matter like that he wasn't throwing to JJ? They hooked up with him for 120 grabs last season.
Right.
Like, all in all, is it going to stunt the growth of Justin Jefferson or prevent this offense from going to the top 5? Probably not. Probably not going to make any sense of the matter. But I do think there was an opportunity sometimes where Kirk can buck a trend, like a perception trend. That's where I was just talking about with you, with Kevin O'Connell, changing his mindset a little bit. That if he changes that kind of stuff, then I do think he gets a lot more credit and a lot more respect among fans. I'm with you, though. I think at the end of the day, it's mostly a nothing burger. I agree. Irv Smith, we'll stay on the offense here before we go to the defense. Irv Smith, man, I mean, great rookie season, like kind of flashed a little bit there. Battled some injuries in his second season. Only stays on the field, I think, for 8-10 games. Last year's having a hell of a camp, and it looks like, all right, we're talking about Irv Smith being the breakout player for the Vikings on the offense this year. Dude unfortunately tears his meniscus towards the end, misses all of 2021. Now he's entering a contract year. What are your realistic expectations for Irv Smith this season for the Vikings?
Well, the thing is, Judd was mentioning this last season when we were on Purple After Dark, that he saw it in training camp, and we all saw it in the preseason where we said, oh, this is going to be the breakout year for Irv Smith Jr. The first 2 years, Kyle Rudolph was atop of the pecking order at tight ends. Last year, there was no one in his way. Rudolph went to New York. Okay, this is when it's finally going to happen, and then he gets hurt. Like you mentioned, no one's in his way. He's the tight end 1. And if health is no issue anymore, I think he's going to have his breakout season. As far as yardage, because, I mean, if Jefferson's going to get 2K, and that's the thing, I guess, just taking a few steps back. Not only is it going to be difficult baseline for Jefferson to hit 2K, but also because of the amount of weapons that Cousins has to throw to. You have Adam Thielen, KJ Osborne, now Irv Smith Jr. Dalvin Cook, he's going to line up wide. He's going to be involved in the passing game. So Irv Smith Jr., I'm going to say 1,000 yards. I'm going to say 1,000 yards.
Wow.
5 touchdowns.
Okay. So the curious part too with Irv here is if he has a season like that, let's just use that, I guess, as the expectation. He gets 1,000 yards, 60, 70 grabs, nice little red zone guy. Mm-hmm. And now he's entering the contract year. Do you think the Vikings play hardball? Because that's the problem here. Like, if he has the big year, he's going to be like, well, I know I battled injuries the last 2 seasons, but I had the year that everyone's been asking me to have, and I want this amount of money per. Do the Vikings have the opportunity to sign him, or do they just say, hey, bye-bye? Tight end's important, but there's also only really like 4 to 5 guys that are elite at the position, and there's just a huge drop-off. Is that something that eventually maybe prevents them long-term? And these are good problems to have, by the way, right? Like, if Irv Smith has this season, we're talking about a potential problem down the road. But I am curious on his future with the Vikings, because if he has like the big season that we're expecting to have, does he end up pricing himself out and the Vikings aren't able to sign him?
I think the Vikings should play hard to get come contract negotiations time. You still have to pay Justin Jefferson too. I mean, there's a lot on the Vikings plate. But I guess conversely, this plays into Irv Smith Jr.'s favor. Like you just mentioned, there's only 4 or 5 elite tight ends out there. And potentially Irv Smith Jr., he can join that class. And if that is the case, you don't let him go. Mm-hmm. So I feel like the Vikings are going to find themselves in between a rock and a hard place. Health has been the number one issue for this guy. Maybe you go the route of, goodness, I mean, Danielle Hunter. What was it last year? There was a bit of a holdout situation, and maybe you sign him to a 1-year contract extension or maybe a 2-year deal, with the second year being a player option, a prove-it deal for him. I just don't see how the Vikings can just go, all right, screw it. We're going to give you a 4 to 5 year deal. One of the best tight ends paid in the league. We'll go ahead and give that to. He has to prove himself first before he gets that long-term contract. So I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, it's difficult to project. I hope he has the big year. What we saw from him when he flashed his rookie season, you could see like, oh man, like this is great. He'll join that next era of tight ends of Travis Kelce's and Rob Gronkowski, who is still there. Like, this is going to be awesome for the Vikings. They're going to have a legitimate tight end just like the rest of them. And then he obviously got hurt and whatnot. But yeah, also in the stew of this offense, where does his targets come from? How many does he get? Is he just more of a red zone guy? Like Visante Schenko never put up big receiving numbers, but the dude was just a beast in the red zone for Favre and T-Jack, right? Like you just knew if you're inside the 20, just throw it 5-10 yards, and Visante is going to have the separation and get the touchdown for you. Is he that kind of player? But he's such a freak athlete that he seems like a guy that you can utilize down the field. Like he's not your classic big bulky tight end. Like, hey, throw me the ball and I'll fall down. Like the dude's got some speed to him. He's got some size. He has insane athleticism. You'd like to think that there's even more to his game. He's like honestly probably like one of the more fascinating players to watch in the offense because we know everyone else is there, right? We know Kirk, Jefferson, Thielen, Dalvin Cook. But like, where does Irv Smith fit into that offense, and how well does he perform in 2022?
Well, I think because Thielen and Jefferson naturally stretch the field, KJ Osborne can do the same. You've got, I don't want to say dump off passes, the check downs, because Irv Smith Jr. is way better than just a 5 to 7 yard air thrown type of player. He can go a little bit further than that, but to the point of the underneath, he can be underneath, but not so much so close to the line of scrimmage. This dude can catch the ball with everyone else stretching the field. He can catch the ball 10 or 11 yards away. So he's a big play receiver. To me, he's a wide receiver that just so happens to play tight end. I think, and I love Visante Schenko, Irv Smith Jr., this is something different. And with the defense, you have to pick your poison. Everyone's going to be locked in on Jefferson. Thielen's going to be out there, Osborne. Someone's going to get one-on-one coverage, and you have to think, more often than not, a linebacker, I would imagine, is going to be covering Irv Smith Jr. He's going to be covering 84. You have to go there every single time. So I think he's very capable of having a big year within, underneath, 10 or 11 yards minimum.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm excited to watch him, and I think he's going to be an awesome player to watch in the Vikings offense this season. Transitioning to the defensive side of the ball, though, Randy. So today on Purple Daily, Mackie Judd and myself were just talking about, how good Danielle Hunter was for the Vikings defense when he was healthy last year. Not obviously how good he is as a player overall, but when they lost him, that defense just stunk, right? Like it was fine those first 8 games of the season. It was top 10 in a lot of major categories outside of the run defense. But then after they lost him in the Cowboys game, everything just went right downhill. That defense looked as bad as it was in 2020. And now they've kind of had to retool it on the fly a little bit here. Just kind of give me your overarching expectations for the Vikings defense. Like, do you think that they can take a significant step? Is it going to be a gradual kind of step-by-step process where they're able to build it back up? What are your expectations for the defense this year?
I think they should be close to league average, bend but don't break. You have Danielle Hunter. You added Zadarius Smith. And I want to actually do a bigger picture here. So going into camp, the two positional units that there were the biggest concerns about was offensive line and cornerbacks.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Cam Dantzler so far has had a great camp up to this point. The pads come on this week. He's had a great camp. So if he's capable of being a quality starter, that really alleviates a ton of question marks there in that aspect. Chandon Sullivan, I'm a little bit iffy on at the slot corner, but you have Cam Bynum there as an emergency spot. So going below that, linebackers, I feel good about what we've got. Eric Kendricks, Jordan Hicks inside, Hunter, Smith outside. You go beyond that. P2, he was solid last year. I expect nothing less this time around. Cam Dantzler, Cam Bynum, if he can play slot, or if Chandon Sullivan just makes me look like an idiot, I'm okay with that too. And then on the back end, the deep center field spots, you've got Hitman and Lewis Seen. The questions that I have on this defense, as far as why I'm not willing to go all out. Oh, first of all, you're going to a 3-4 from a 4-3. So there's a lot of changes there, but also the defensive line. Dalvin Tomlinson, I feel great about. Nose tackle, he's going to be fantastic. Outside of that, the other two defensive linemen, Harrison Phillips, and before I get into that, is there any question that he's already a lock to be the Vikings nominee for Walter Payton Man of the Year?
Yeah.
He is, my God, just as far as human beings, this is a great man. I love what he's doing in the community. Ever since he got signed, my God.
Yeah.
But this is the first time he's tasked with being a full-time starter. And then the third defensive lineman, is it Armon Watts? Is it Jalen Twyman?
Right.
2 of those 3 defensive line, I've got questions about, which means if I'm an opposing offensive coordinator, I'm going to smack at the run game. I really am. I think there are going to be issues with the run defense. This pass rush, I think there's going to be a lot of pressure on them because if you can just get the opposing offense in 3rd and long situations, then that puts the defense in a position to where, okay, the pass rush, they can get after it. And the back end, I feel good about. But 3rd and short situations to where, okay, a quick pass here to where the pass rush, there's not enough time for them to get after the quarterback, or you can run the ball with the running back. I'm a little bit hesitant with that. But with that said, the pass rush and the back end, I feel really good about. I think they're going to be close to a league average defense. I'll say no worse than 18th.
Yeah, I kind of have their ceiling at like 18th because I don't know how they can make a big jump from like 30th to top 10 overnight. I actually said the same thing going into last year's. Like, they were, I think, 28th, 29th in 2020. And I was like, there's no way, even if Daniil comes back healthy, like you just don't make a jump 30 spots. You just won't. Like it can't happen like that overnight. I think also the Vikings fans got kind of spoiled, right? Like we had, if you grew up as a fan, and if you're, I'm 29 years old. So like if you grew up a fan in the early 2000s and whatnot, like you got the Williams Wall, which was an amazing, historically great run stuffing defense. And even after those guys left, you got Linval Joseph. So you're still pretty damn good at stuff in the run. And then that all came unglued in 2020, right? Like Linval, you moved on from, he just wasn't the player he was anymore. And then all of a sudden teams started running up the Vikings gut like crazy. And we haven't experienced that, right? Like I think it became such part of the DNA, like, oh, they'll stop the run. Like and also when we're talking about running backs and the running game in the NFL, it's not really a priority, right? So you kind of just like sleep on it and forget about it, like, oh, it's not going to be a big deal. But when you're giving up 140 yards per game on the ground, well, now that's a pretty damn big deal. Like that now that makes their offense that much more easier to attack the Vikings defense because all they have to do is just run it up, quick little passes here, quick little strikes here, keep them gashed, keep them on the field a long time, and then they're going to score, right? Like that's going to be the opposing team's mindset against the defense. So hopefully the Harrison Phillips, the Dalvin Tomlinson, the new scheme, yes, it changes some things. I'm not in love with paying a lot of money to the defensive tackles. Like I think they're paying Harrison Phillips and Dalvin Tomlinson like almost $20 million per combined, which is just kind of like from a cap spending standpoint for me, I'm like, I think there's more effective ways to spend at that position, but at the same time, you had to get better at it somehow, right? So you're probably going to overpay in free agency and ask those players to do more than they're supposed to do. But I think expectation-wise, they have to they just have to be elite at getting after the quarterback. Like if Zadarius Smith and Daniil Hunter and how they scheme all that up, if they can get after the quarterback, like at, again, a top 5, top 10 rate, that defense should be fine. Like it's bend not break to your point. You should be able to win enough football games. You should be able to be taken seriously to a degree. If they can't get after the quarterback, it's going to be awful. Like even if they're league average, like let's say, I think they finished like 7th or 8th in sack percentage last season. But like if they are worse, like if they are 15th and Zadarius Smith and Daniil are fine, or there's injuries and they're missing time on the field, that defense can be just as bad as it was the last 2 years. My expectations for those cornerbacks you talked about in Cam Dantzler and whatnot, like if Dantzler takes the step forward of being cornerback 1, all right, that solves one issue. Andrew Booth was supposed to be a first-round player. He just fell because he got hurt towards the end of the combine and stuff. But like if both those guys take steps forward and you have enough veteran leadership behind them, like in Harrison Smith, the Eric Kendricks of the world, I think league average should be the expectation for that defense. And if they can get up to there, I'll take that. Like if you can promise me like 5th best offense in points scored, and to your point, 18th in defense, yeah, that's probably a 10-11 win football team.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Easily, right?
Yeah.
Like it'd be pretty surprising if they didn't win double-digit games. So it's going to be a work in progress in the defense, and it's not as sexy as a thing to talk about because you didn't hire a defensive style coach, and in general, it's going to take a little bit to piece everything back together. But I think expectation-wise, that defense, if they get after the quarterback at an elite rate, should be okay.
And I think Ed Donatel is going to do a great job with the players that he has to work with. And maybe this is just me speaking anecdotally, but I feel like 3-4 defenses, more often than not, if nothing else, they're just faster than the 4-3 sets. And with this pass rush that now, like you said, if the pass rush isn't there, then the defense just blow it all up. But that's not to be expected because Daniil Hunter, when healthy, is one of the best edge rushers in the game. And you add Zadarius Smith combined, they can get 30 sacks total combined between the two of them. That pass rush is going to be legit. That's why I'm saying the pressure is going to be on them to make this defense go, because the run defense, I believe, is going to struggle. Now, if the run defense can, match the effectiveness of the pass rush, then oh my God, let's celebrate right now. Let's champagne, print the shirts. But that's a little bit too much to be expected in year one. But I think Ed Donatel, that Vic Fangio-like defense that he's bringing from Denver, if nothing else, they're going to be very fast and they'll close on the football.
I think last point too on this defensive side is I actually really applaud Kevin O'Connell for being like, hey, all right, my MO is offense, right? I'm younger. I'm probably gonna be a little inexperienced, right? I'm gonna be learning on the job to a degree. Let me hire someone who knows what they're doing. Ed Donatel, right? Like your classic NFL veteran DC, been around the block a ton. He's probably a little bit more grizzled, a little bit more old school, but you know what? Head source that out to someone else. Like Kevin O'Connell, oversee it. Obviously, don't ignore it. Don't be the counterpoint of Zimmer where you're just ignoring offense, which is what Mike Zimmer did. But he sourced that out to someone and said, hey, I trust you. You know what you're doing. Go out and do it, right? Like last year, Mike Zimmer said, hey, I'm going to hand over my offense to Clint Kubiak because I don't really care about offense. Like, well, hold on here. Like, just because his last name's Kubiak and we're running the same type of scheme his dad did, and I'm sure his dad can give him all the pointers in the world, is he ready for this? Is he ready to do this? And I think with Kevin O'Connell hiring someone like Ed Donatel, that's the opposite. Like that's good. Like you're hiring someone who's been there and done that. And I think it'll pay dividends to that defense who are the veteran players and even the rookies too. Like, so I also, we talked about off the top of the show, how can coaching help improve this team? A decision like that to source out something that maybe you're not as familiar with, but you want it to be better and have expectations for it. Hiring someone like Ed Donatel and changing up the scheme is probably going to pay off for you. So again, bravo to Kevin O'Connell for making those type of choices too.
Yes, O'Connell, in fact, in his intro presser, he made it a point to emphasize the collaboration part, the cohesion part of the coaches that he is going to hire within his staff. So even though O'Connell may not understand defense, he wants to bring everyone together to where we can all be on the same page. What are your ideas here? Here's what I think of that. I don't know, man. We can be guilty, prisoner of the moment. And like you said, well, I was excited about Mike Zimmer in 2014, but the aura, the energy, the vibe throughout the coaching staff, in the locker room, throughout, I just feel like good things are to come. I feel like this team is finally in good hands with this coaching staff. I think Ed Donatel is going to do a great job as DC.
Hell yeah, man. Well, Randy, that's going to wrap up, I think, our first episode here. Any last takes here before we're gonna be back by every Monday? So this is not just a one-off thing. Every Monday, right around your afternoon, early dinner time. Randy's in the West Coast, so he's out in California for the most part. I'm here back in Minnesota and stuff. But yeah, you can expect this around 4 to 5 o'clock Central Time. Most days in the YouTube channel and the podcast feeds and whatnot. But every Monday, man, I'm actually excited for games here. We're 5 weeks away. I'm a big Randy. I love hockey and I love baseball. I'm finally getting myself into the Wolves a little bit more now that they've made Rudy Gobert. But all right, I'm exhausted of not talking about football, and I want football games back. And now that training camp's here and pads are on, I'm like, all right, bring me all the football, dude. I'm ready for Sundays. Even the last few Sundays, hanging out here in the summer in Minnesota, I'm like, all right, I like golfing, but I'd much rather be waking up and starting my day with some football. I'm ready for that. And we're still 5 weeks away, but we're getting closer, dude. And I'm jacked. I'm absolutely jacked.
During the off season, we as content creators, we have to think of stuff to talk about, predictions or speculations. Here's what we think is going to happen with the team. But what I love the most is the reactionary phase of football. We're damn near in it now. Training camp is here. We get to react to how players look in practice. Sunday football games, we're going to react to the plays of the game, how the players look, how the team perform. That is the best part. And the buffalo chicken, it tastes better. The drink tastes better during Sundays. A lot more energy on Sunday morning when I wake up on the West Coast. I'm spoiled. Football starts at 10 a.m. for me. I can't wait, man. We are just about there. And this team is going to be so exciting. The skull chant, all that stuff, man. Bring it on right now. Let's go.
Hell yeah. Randy, before I wrap up, plug your YouTube channel too and where people can find you at.
Search Realistic Randy on YouTube. You can find me there. Twitter at realistic_Randy. I'm on Instagram. I don't know. I'm not on social media much. I post my thoughts here and there once in a while, and then I log out. But if you search Instagram Realistic Randy, I'll pop up there. But that's where you can find me.
All right, Realistic Randy, check him out. This is Realistic Randy Rants every Monday on the Purple Daily YouTube feed. Again, we still have the same mission statement. We all just want to see the Vikings win a Super Bowl before we die. Hit the subscribe button for daily Minnesota Vikings entertainment. We'll be back at you next Monday.